Today, we're going to be covering haunted places, mythical creatures, and buried treasure that supposedly linger in New Jersey, contributing to the state's folklore. Now, if you like this sort of thing, learning the facts and history behind supposed supernatural events and urban legends, you've come to the right video today, because here on Forever Storytime, we're venturing across the United States to learn all about the local mythology and urban legends present across it. So if this sort of thing is of interest to you, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, and turn on alerts. It'll never cost you a dime, and it's an easy way to tell YouTube that my channel is worth watching. Also, if you feel like commenting, I'd love to hear from you. Even if you're just saying hi, it means the world to me when people say hi. And now, without further ado, let's get into the urban legends and local mythology and creepy encounters that define New Jersey. First up, we have the Jersey Devil. When many think New Jersey, they think of Newark or the expansive highways that run through the state between New York and Philadelphia, but these thoughts of the state neglect a quieter, perhaps more mysterious portion of the state to the south, known colloquially as the Pine Barrens. There are countless tales of creatures that dwell in those parts, but perhaps none of them are more infamous than the Jersey Devil. There are many origin stories for this creature, which has come to be described as some amalgamation of creatures with a goat-like head, hooves like those of a goat or a horse, bat-like wings, a tail like that of a wyvern, and small stubby arms out front like a T-Rex. But the most popular origin story is that stems from a tale known as that of Mother Leeds. This tale is the story of one Jane Leeds, a woman who lived in the Pine Barrens in the 1700s supposedly. This woman had given birth to 12 children, and it's said that when she found out she was pregnant again for the 13th time, she yelled out in frustration that the child would certainly be a devil. Sure enough, in 1735, they say, when Jane Leeds went into labor, it was no normal sight. A storm was brewing in the area. And surrounded by family and friends, what was immediately born a normal child quickly transformed into a beast, flying away from its mother without even a thank you, and flying up out of the chimney and into the forests surrounding the home of Jane Leeds. Now, some tales say that this creature was born as a beast because Jane herself was a witch, or because her husband was actually the devil. And there are even rumors that there have been attempts to exorcise the entire Pine Barrens region following this event. But apparently these exorcisms did not work if first-hand accounts of this creature are to be believed. See, it isn't just random townsfolk that have claimed to see this creature. Many of the most notable sightings were actually by well-known individuals. For instance, Stephen Decatur, a U.S. naval officer and commodore, claimed to see a flying creature near a place called Hanover Mill Works, even hitting the creature with a cannonball and having no effect. In 1820, Joseph Bonaparte, the older brother of Napoleon Bonaparte, claimed that while hunting in Bordentown Estate, a town near modern-day Trenton, New Jersey, he actually saw the Jersey Devil. Additionally, sort of like UFO mythology today, the Jersey Devil has been blamed for the killings of livestock in the region, with many instances of this being reported in the 1840s. Even as recently as the 1900s, there have been sightings of the Jersey Devil. In 1909, for instance, a rash of sightings was published in a newspaper across southern New Jersey and Philadelphia, claiming that an unknown creature had been attacking trolleys, fighting police in Camden and Bristol, Pennsylvania, and even eliciting such a response that some schools in the region closed and some workers in the area were told to stay home from work. This rash of sightings even prompted the Philadelphia Zoo to offer a $10,000 reward for someone to capture this creature. Now, all this hustle and bustle about a really weird creature has obviously prompted folks to wonder if the creature is indeed real. You could, of course, throw your hands in the air and say that this is all an imaginary story of a winged boogeyman with some religious undertone, or a wives' tale invented to keep folks out of the Pine Barrens that were historically a fairly dangerous place to be, filled with criminals and unsavory folks. Now, you would be somewhat right in this train of thought, but the truth of the matter has far more depth and is far more interesting than this. See, the Leeds family, or the supposed family of the woman that actually gave birth to the Jersey Devil, might actually be real, or folks at least believe that the name Leeds is referring to a real group of individuals. Some point to one real-life Deborah Leeds as being the true face behind Jane Leeds of mythology. For proof, they point to the fact that her husband in 1736 named 12 children in his will, which fits this urban legend eerily well. There's also theories that perhaps are more plausible that the Jersey Devil is just a story which was spread during a religio-political dispute. If you look to the 1600s and 1700s, for instance, there was an almanac publisher and politician, Daniel Leeds, and his son, Titan Leeds. See, these two, in particular the elder Daniel, produced a rival almanac to that of Ben Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac, which was a bit of a hoodoo, voodoo, or astrology-driven attempt to predict the weather. Because of this, not only were Daniel and Titan goofed on by Benjamin Franklin throughout the years, but the two were often described as monsters, and they were sometimes individually described as the Leeds Devil. This theory even almost gets the number of children right, as Daniel Leeds' first wife had given birth to 9 children. His family name is even the one behind the naming of New Jersey's Leeds Point, one of the areas that is most associated with sightings of the Jersey Devil. Heck, the Leeds family crest, which was widely popularized on their almanac, even depicts a wyvern, a sort of bat-like, winged dragon sort of thing. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Truth is stranger than fiction, and the amalgamation of truth and fiction is often extremely ironic. Next up, we have the Atco Ghost. In southern New Jersey, there is a quiet little road named Burnt Mill Road that runs through a town named Atco, which by all accounts online is boring, with nothing to do. As the story goes, one night, some tales say Christmas night to be specific, there was a young boy playing with a basketball, and he was struck by a car. Some stories say that this car was being driven by someone in a drag race, others say it was a drunken driver. Regardless, Burnt Mill Road is a one-way, so the driver had to double back and pass the body of the kid after the act once again. This is supposedly the origin of the Atco Ghost, and it has an urban legend attached to it, like quite a few others we've covered before on these lists. In short, if you want to see the Atco Ghost for yourself, because of course when there's a will there's a way, all you have to do is get its attention. Some urban legends surrounding the ghost say that the classic honk your horn 3 times and he will appear adage applies here, but there's another far spookier claim that I much prefer. This one says that you've got to find yourself on Burnt Mill Road, park your car, turn off your lights, and then leave the safety of your vehicle, walking at least 20 feet away. Then all you have to do is turn around, and behind you, you'll supposedly be met with the face of a pale, young little boy that is in search of his long-lost attacker. Now, to be frank, I couldn't find any proof that a boy was actually hit by a car on this road, but I found plenty of accounts saying that folks as teens would head down to this road in droves when they were bored on a summer evening and try their best to lure out this young boy. In this regard, I think this tale is similar to the Goatman of Maryland we've covered, but to be honest, I far prefer the tension-building exercise of luring out this young boy to simply just honking your horn from the relative safety of your car. At number 3, we have Clinton Road. Now, 2 haunted roads in one state is an unusual choice for me, but I'd be remiss if I didn't cover what is claimed to be the most chilling road in New Jersey, and sometimes even in America. Clinton Road is located in West Milford, New Jersey, and runs through it for about 10 miles. This road has attracted attention because of the wide variety of claims about it, such as supposed sightings of cryptids, the nearby woods harboring groups of unsavory individuals like Wiccans, Satanists, and the KKK, and for there being supposed serial unalivers, and even for there being a few ghosts. Now, from a historical perspective, this road gets its name from the town Clinton, which used to be located in the area. And there is some true horror that has occurred here, as a body was dumped beside this road in 1983, being discovered by a cyclist riding down Clinton Road. But otherwise, this road is seemingly fairly mundane. Despite this, there's a seemingly never-ending list of odd occurrences that can happen to you on this road. To start, there's tales of cars driving at night that are ghostly. As the legend goes, either a Camaro or some variety of pickup truck crashed on this road in the 80s or 90s, and if you bring these vehicles up in a conversation while you're on the road, you're putting yourself in a position to be haunted by their manifestations. They say that if you mention these crashes, suddenly headlights might materialize behind your car, tailing you closely for a while before disappearing. There's also the aptly named Ghost Boy Bridge, which, as you'd expect, is a bridge that at midnight is supposedly haunted by the phantom of a young man who drowned in the nearby Clinton Brook or reservoir. They say that if you stop your car and look over the water, that you might be pushed into the water by this ghost. Now, if you head off of Clinton Road and into the woods, things get even more dangerous. There's a tale that in the forest surrounding this road in 1939, 2 park rangers passed away while working, and there are accounts by campers in the area that claim to have run into these rangers. You can also find an abandoned iron smelter that was built in 1826 and is currently listed by the National Register of Historic Places as the Clinton Furnace. But rumors say that for whatever reason, this is a site where druids practice rituals, and that if you interrupt them, they might attack you. Although I highly doubt that druids worship an iron smelter. There are also tales of strange creatures in the woods. For instance, a hellhound-like creature is cited as dwelling in them, as well as, for whatever reason, monkeys have supposedly been sighted. I guess those aren't necessarily supernatural, but I have to say the idea of monkeys living in New Jersey woods is bananas. Did you get the joke? I know it's not a very good joke. At number 4, we have Captain Kidd's Hidden Treasure. Now, if you were going to take a wild guess at folklore-related activities you could do in New Jersey, I bet you'd be blown away if I told you that one of them was buried treasure. Captain Kidd, or William Kidd, was born in 1654 in Scotland, and was a successful privateer, or a private individual who engaged in maritime warfare, by the 1690s. In the late 1690s, or specifically in December of 1695, he was actually commissioned by many northeastern USA territories of New York, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire to hunt pirates and hostile French ships in the Indian Ocean. And this request had the authority of the English crown behind it. This, I think, will be surprising to many folks who thought that Captain Kidd was always a pirate, but I promise you that that side of the story is coming. See, Kidd's voyage was plagued with quite a few incidents of disobedience to the crown. Early on, his ship failed to salute an English Navy yacht, something customary at the time, and Kidd and his crew responded by turning around and slapping their backsides to the ship when they scolded them. In another instance, Kidd promised a Royal Navy officer some of his crew to be impressed into the Navy, but then he left, sailing out into the night instead, getting him labeled a pirate by this specific officer. And then, cementing his piracy, in January of 1698, Kidd took an Armenian merchant ship filled with valuable goods like gold, silver, satins, muslins, silks, and more. This ship was being piloted by an Englishman, and when news of this ship's capture reached England, he was officially classified a pirate. Now, Kidd apparently wasn't a fan of this, and he traveled toward Boston to try and get himself acquitted. On his way, they say that he stopped throughout New Jersey, hiding some of his treasure across the state, but also using some of it to bribe politicians in an attempt to get his name off of the proverbial blacklist. Eventually, he made it back to Boston and was subsequently arrested and claimed to officials that he had hidden about 40,000 English pounds of treasure across New Jersey, and that it would be the officials' money if they released him. Sadly, the officials didn't take this bait though, and in 1703, instead they executed Captain Kidd over the Thames River in London. Now this isn't where the story ends though. Turns out Kidd wasn't bluffing. After his arrest, about 20,000 cashed English pounds were found on an island off the coast of Long Island, New York, making people realize that there were actually decent odds that more treasure was strewn about. Because of this, to this day, folks on beaches and in the forest of New Jersey keep an eye out for treasure buried by Captain Kidd. At number 5, we have the legend of the Hookerman. So, while it almost gets there, sadly I have to burst your bubble that this urban legend isn't a regurgitation of the supernatural episode Hookman. Trust me, I'm disappointed too. This tale is from Morris County, New Jersey, and in short it basically says that you might see a strange light traveling down some of the roads or railroad tracks in the area, and you might think it was someone walking along with a lantern, and then it suddenly might disappear. This light links back to an even earlier tale of a railway worker falling unconscious with his arm lying across the railroad tracks, and waking up to find that his arm was severed by an oncoming train. In place of his arm, in time he ended up attaching a hook where the arm used to be, and with this hook he'd hold a lantern, which he used to go hunting down the railroad tracks for the wedding ring which was on his lost arm. It's said that, supposedly this tale is true up to this point, and the legend actually comes after his passing. These days, they say that even though he passed away, you can still see lantern light, and as a matter of fact, this isn't just hearsay, it's a fairly well-known thing that odd lights do indeed travel along this area, running along the railroad tracks and roadways. Now on to what these lights really could be though. Many folks do claim that this is a genuine case of a ghost haunting the area, but a more logical explanation is that these lights are something more like Missouri's Joplin spook lights, and that these lights are just a product of an optical illusion that makes it look like light is floating above the tracks. There's also a theory I saw perpetuated on a website, Weird New Jersey, that was put forward by an electrical engineer that said that because the railroad bed in this area is made of granite, and granite conducts electricity well, that these lights might have been some sort of electrical phenomenon spurred on by the railroad tracks. Perhaps something like ball lightning even. Indeed, geological activity like earthquakes does seem to have some correlation with the observations of the Hookerman's light on a superficial level, so maybe this is an explanation. But sadly, we'll never know, as the company Conrail, who owns the railroad bed in the area, ripped up the tracks in 1977, and since then observations of the Hookerman have dropped off markedly. On one hand, get the pun, on one hand, perhaps this lends credence to the whole conduction theory. On the other hand, which, is missing, if those tracks were necessary to solve this mystery, we might never get an explanation now. And last up at number 6, we have the Newark ghost train. There's a unique ghost story that calls Newark, New Jersey its home, that says at midnight, on the 10th of the month, every month, a phantom train pulls up to the Track 5 platform located in modern-day Penn Station, Newark. They say that you'd know it was coming because, unsurprisingly, it sounds like a train, but there's not one to be seen. In 2001, there was actually an EVP posted to the New Jersey Ghost Hunters Society that claimed to have heard this phantom train go by when no train was present. So supposedly you can still hear it. Although comments I'm reading on Reddit and railroad forums seem to believe that this recording is a hoax, even pointing to the fact that the recording sounds eerily similar to another recording played by a specific model train. Regardless, there are quite a few tales of individuals actually experiencing this phenomenon, even if the recording itself is false. So I thought I'd include this one because I think that urban legends like this are loads of fun. If you feel daring, why don't you go to Penn Station yourself? You can get in there at midnight, can't you? Let me know if you see the train. Thank you all for joining me today on this journey through the Pine Barrens. Remember, if you liked this video and you want future and past videos from me to show up on your feed, that you can subscribe to this channel and even like this video if you want the world to know that I exist. This way, you won't miss it when we move on to our next state, New Mexico. And remember, most importantly, whether a ghost train just flew by you or some odd headlights popped up behind your car on Clinton Road, don't you ever forget, it's always story time.